Welcome to the Sound Healing Global Summit, a free online event featuring leading-edge sound healing practitioners, revealing the curative and evolutionary powers of sound healing therapies to create vibrant health for you and your clients. Share this event with your friends and family, and come join us on Facebook at The Shift Network. And now your host, Alec W. Sims.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again here on the Sound Healing Global Summit. Appreciate having you with us. And our special guest coming up this time is Eileen McKusick. Eileen McKusick, MA, is a researcher, writer, inventor, practitioner, educator, and speaker on the effects of audible sound on the human body and biofield. Eileen is the founder of the sound therapy method Biofield Tuning and the inventor of the sonic slider, as well as the author of the books Tuning the Biofield, Healing with Vibrational Sound Therapy, and the upcoming book, Electric Body, Electric Health. Eileen, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I understand you're still stranded in Jamaica at the moment.
I am still in Jamaica. Yes, I was supposed to be here for just a few months to finish up my second book. And that just turned into a few more months. And now I'm not sure I want to go back. So I'm enjoying being here in the warmth and relative sanity, I think, compared to what's going on in the States.
Yeah, don't blame you. It sounds like a fine place to have an extended writing retreat. But I guess that sort of gets the ball rolling. I was just looking at the title of your upcoming book, Electric Body, Electric Health. So we'll start with that broad stroke question of, in your view, what is electric health? What do you mean by that?
Electric health is the idea that it's our electrical system in our body that is a primary determinant of the quality of the health of all the rest of the systems in our body. And it's a system that most of us don't even recognize. We see the bits and pieces of the electrical system, but we don't necessarily understand the electric system as a whole and how really primary and causative it is for physical, mental, and emotional health. And it's basically the idea that when you're alive, your light is on, and when you die, the body's still there, but the light has gone out. And it's that light, it's that electrical system that makes your heart beat, that makes your brain work, that drives, every single cell's functioning, is the fact that we are electric bodies and we are living in an electric environment and even an electric universe. And this electric aspect of not only our own bodies, but also the world around us is something that we've been really disconnected from, we've been really unplugged from. And that when we start to understand that the body is a battery and that, you've either got a dim bulb or you've got a bright bulb. And when your bulb gets dim, when your voltage gets low, your health drops. And when your voltage is high, when you've been feeding your electric body light and taking care of your electrical system, then your voltage is high and your body takes care of itself and you don't get sick or disease. And so my work with sound sees the body as an electronic instrument that gets out of tune, that gets noise and resistance in the electrical signal that causes inflammation and it causes all kinds of other disorders. And we use sound to clarify that signal, to make our nervous system sing instead of sound and feel frazzled, and to remove the resistance that is held in deep tension in our bodies. So that's the essence of electric health and using sound to improve it.
I like that. I like the term, making our system sing, because I've also seen you use the phrase sounding all of our notes. How does that figure into this retuning process?
Well, I've really started to come to see the body as an instrument. And I've been playing around with different metaphors for, is it like a piano or is it like a stringed instrument? Lately, I've been playing with the idea of the body as a pipe organ and how we want to play all the different notes, and the notes being our emotions, because every single emotion, it has a waveform, it has a frequency signature. And using tuning forks, I've been able to sort of decode how that sounds and feels like when we experience it. Whenever you feel a certain way, your body is exhibiting a waveform of that emotion. Like, for example, fear. When we're afraid, that the fear frequency has a pulsing quality to it. It's rapid, and when you become very afraid and that waveform becomes so energized, it actually causes the body to shake. And so you can hear that if somebody's afraid and you sound a tuning fork near them, you can actually hear the pulsing quality of that waveform in the overtones of the tuning fork. And so over time, many years, many decades of bouncing sound off people and listening to the ping back, I've been able to identify a whole range of emotions and what they sound like. And our biggest problem with emotions, which are really the key to health, and this is something that, we haven't really talked about so much as a culture. We talk about mental health, but really mental health is emotional health. And it's almost like emotions are a dirty word that we don't want to say, right? Depression is a feeling. Sadness is a feeling. Mania is a feeling. And so all of those feelings are notes that we play inside that compose our inner orchestra. And so if you have a great many different emotions that humans are designed to feel and to express, there's many different ways we can feel sadness. There's many different types of anger. There's many different types of fear. And they all have subtle tonal expressions. And what we've been taught as a culture, many of us just in our families growing up, is that we're not allowed to express our emotions. Girls can cry, boys can get angry, but in many homes, many people growing up, the response of parents was, take your nonsense to your room, or, don't express because it's not cool. And so we end up having all of these emotions that are generated in us that are a very natural response to life, our feeling response to life. Like life plucks our strings and we feel a certain way, but we've labeled them as bad, as not okay, as someplace we don't go. We might stuff that anger with sugar and just not go there. But meanwhile, somebody's done something that has maybe made you justifiably angry. And if you don't communicate that, you're going to have bigger problems down the road. It might become unsafe or unhealthy, right? So really every emotion that we experience is really designed to keep us healthy. And so what we end up with is we end up taking all of these notes in our pipe organ that we've decided that we're just not going to play anymore. And so, I won't play the jealousy thing, or I'm fearless, I'm not going to play the fear note, or, rage, that's too much, I'm not going to play that note. And so we end up expressing a diminished range of who we are. And, mental illness or emotional illness is playing the same notes over and over again. It's just depression, depression. And that is not healthy. In order for us to be healthy, we need to express all the tones and the semitones of our being and be willing to go to all of them and be willing to give them voice. And that's really where healing happens, is in the expression or the release of these waveforms that were generated in us, but then they weren't allowed to fulfill their destiny, because the destiny of every generated waveform is to rise up, to crest into our awareness, to deliver its message that wants to keep us healthy, and then to fall away. And in the process of being generated, it creates hormones and messenger molecules and things like dopamine and serotonin, but those are coming in the wake of the generation of this wave. So we want to allow these emotional waves, these emotional notes, to sound out fully in order to bring our body into a state of harmony and health.
And would you draw a distinction between that initial, just raw feeling, energetic impulse, which comes and goes, passes pretty quickly, versus the label you put on it after the fact, the emotion? So you may have a certain feeling. If you choose to put the label excitement on it, it's a good thing. If you put the label fear on it, it's a bad thing. And those labels,
That's right.
Is that what gets stuck in the biofield?
Yeah, and also the kind of reverberations of all the other places where we felt it and not expressed it, and now we've got backlogged, so everything is getting lit up. I mean, technically, and this is pretty scientifically supported, that when our string gets plucked and we have an emotional response, that waveform technically it only vibrates for about 90 seconds, and then it's done. And then, but how do you manage that? It's like, what do you do with that emotion? Are you going to suppress it? And because if you have the waveform of anger generated and start to rise up, and you suppress it with a brownie, the molecules that were generated don't go away. They don't get recycled. They're kind of like waiting for that wave to break in order to go away. And so every time an emotion arises and we don't express it, we've invested life force into that waveform that is now no longer in circulation. And so the more people accumulate unexpressed emotions, the lower and lower their voltage goes. And what I've observed is that many people who have, especially autoimmune diseases, things like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, lupus, Epstein-Barr, all of these sort of low energy disorders, that person has low voltage, that they've been discharging more than they've been recharging, that they've been saying yes when they mean no, that they've been holding back their own truth, holding back their own emotions, trying to be nice, trying to be good, and are just piling up with lack of expression, with all of these tones in their inner organ that just no longer sound. And, monks chant for hours every day. Like anybody doing chanting or singing knows that making sounds increases your energy level. And so you can imagine what a healthy person who has all of these different pipes playing, because they don't judge any of their emotions. They allow their emotions to simply arise and be felt or voiced. I mean, some of the most powerful healing work that I've done has been finding these sticky pipes that aren't firing, that one from the pit of despair. Well, I decided I'm just not going to go there. Right. And yet despair is a really valid human emotion to feel and to express. And so when we deny ourselves, when we're walling ourselves off from our humanity, when we judge and deny ourselves the expression, the acknowledgement and the expression of any emotion, it's kind of a radical concept. And I'm not talking about everybody just like going off like with their emotions all over the place. I mean, certainly we want to bring discernment to like how and when we explore sounding emotions, and certainly, taking things out on other people in disproportionate ways is inappropriate. There's ways to express our emotions in really healthy ways. And even just in a quiet room of going in and being like, I'm really feeling a lot of emotion and I'm just going to make a tone from that place. I'm really feeling the pit of despair at the moment. And so I'm just going to be like, and I'm just going to give voice to it. I'm going to let that feeling be expressed. And what's kind of neat about that process is that when you give voice to it and you keep on giving voice to it and you keep on giving voice to it, then the sort of natural antidote, the sort of stronger, clearer potential expression of that pipe comes through. Right? Because every pipe kind of serves a dual purpose. One is to express the dissonance, the incoherent, the discomfort. But then through that expression, entrain yourself with your own voice into the more coherent expression of that particular place. That's usually more centered, more calm. And just in that expression is the medicine to help you feel better.
Thank you. That's one of the most powerful things to note, that the most powerful healing tool that we all have within us all the time, our own voice. So those are some nice tips to how to open things up that way. But thinking back to the tuning fork world, when you are doing a biofield tuning with the tuning forks, what's the general sketch of the approach there? How you hear these different tones off of the tuning forks?
The way that a biofield tuning session works is a person comes in and they lie down on a treatment table, fully clothed. And a tuning practitioner will do a few things. One, we're working with your electromagnetic body, right? So we want to wake up and improve the fundamental flow in your electrical system. So we do that by activating. There's like a battery terminal almost below our feet that our field draws the negative electrical charge from the surface of the earth up through the center of the electromagnetic structure, which is a toroid. So a toroid is sort of like a sphere with a spiral channel down the middle. And, that's the same, like even a bar magnet kind of produces the same thing. Anything with an electric current running through it has a magnetic field around it. And in the case of the human biofield, this field is bounded with a membrane. So it's sort of like a bubble, a magnetic bubble. And the negative charge flows up the central channel and around the outside. We also draw in the positive electrical force from the sun, and that comes in the descending current. And so this electric flow flows bidirectionally. And within the container of that boundary is a zone that holds standing waves. And my research has shown that hypothetically, this atmosphere, this bounded atmosphere, contains all our memories. And I've learned to access very specific memories in very specific zones of this field. Basically, my research is that I use sound like sonar to map the sonic terrain of this environment that's sort of hidden in plain view around us. It's like our own personal cloud storage system of all our memories. So that would be our biofield, our electrical system that holds, we talk about nervous system memory. Obviously, you have memories, they've got to be stored somewhere. We know from other forms of science that information is stored very well on standing waves. Saying that they're stored in the brain, which is largely fat, we don't see many places in nature where information is stored in fat, but we do see it in standing waves. And so this terrain revealed itself to me, and I was able to determine that whenever people have experiences, we put words on everything, but it's a vibrational experience, like our feeling sense. So the feeling of like when you get the news that your spouse has been having an affair, and the vibrations that get generated in that kind of experience, and then the stress that ensues can be found vibrationally in your field. And so that dropping a tuning fork in your biofield and moving slowly towards your body is like dropping a needle on an album and reading the vibrational record of your life. Information that's at the outer edge is gestation and birth. And as we move in closer to the body, we are accessing waves that were more recently generated. So that car accident that you had 20 years ago, it's got this sound in it, and that injury in your knee has got this sound, and the arthritis in your hip has got that sound. And so what's very cool about the body is that as we move the tuning fork through the record and we encounter, let's say, that divorce, the record of that divorce, and it sounds terrible, the body hears itself. And in that atonal quality, most people on the table, depending on the acoustics of the room, can hear it as well. You can certainly hear something like a car accident because it's got a very shrieking, categorical shriek. And the body will recognize that it's out of tune, and the body will spontaneously work with that biofeedback signal to start to auto-tune. It will start to relax, and a breath will start to move and open. And then that noise will suddenly become harmony, and the deep tension that was being held in the body will release, and the breath will become more liberated. And so it's a very systematic process of going through the field and finding difficult memories, difficult experiences that have got your biofield in a bunch in that zone and are trapping energy because it's all in a bunch. And that represents some kind of tension and inflammation in the body where things are in a bunch, and just giving the body the opportunity to relax and release that. And when we're in a state of relaxation and flow, then waste is removed from cells, nutrients are delivered to cells, the body takes care of itself. So that's the fundamental thing that the tuning forks do is give the body the opportunity to retune to its factory settings.
I like that metaphor, retune to the factory settings. But it seems like the key skill for the practitioner is actually being really present and listening, because the tuning fork is sort of a neutral sound source, but you're sweeping through and you hear those timbre changes in the tuning fork sound as the result of that interface with the whatever you're hitting in the biofield. Is that correct as a simple overview?
Yes. And, however, everybody is a different type of learner. So some people really hear the sounds right away. Other people actually feel it more in their fingertips, because when you hit an area of turbulence, the way that the fork is vibrating in your fingers changes. And it literally becomes more vibrating, to quote my son many years ago when I asked him to describe it. It changes. And so some people, actually, I would say the majority of people respond more to their feeling sense initially. Some people notice that they feel discomfort in their own body, because when the tuning fork is resonating in a particular experience, that information and the feeling associated with that information is transferred to me, because I'm holding it, or whoever is holding it. So we might suddenly feel sad or feel nauseous. And so our body is going to show us when we've hit something. We might also find that we stop breathing immediately, because these zones that we hit where there's resistance and turbulence and noise are areas where there is no breath moving in that part of the body. And so that informs our own body of don't breathe because of what's going on here. And so we as practitioners have to really monitor our own breath and keep ourselves breathing and grounding, receiving the information, but not taking it on, transforming it immediately, grounding it. And nobody needs to be psychic or extra sensitive or anything. You don't even need to understand what it is you're encountering, because 9 times out of 100 usually, the body will just correct itself. It'll be it's sort of like looking in the mirror and seeing you have spinach in your teeth, and you just automatically fix it. And the body hears that it's flat over there or it's sharp over there. It wants to fix it. It wants to be in tune. We're designed to be exquisitely in tune.
So working with an experienced practitioner is probably best, but I know you offer forks on your site. To what degree can people get good benefits with working with the forks themselves, on themselves?
Yeah, you can definitely use forks on yourself. There's a couple of different ways that you can do that. You could get an unweighted fork. So this one is 528 hertz. And you can just activate it and sit with it, and just listen and feel. And just even that process can just help quiet your mind, because when you go from thinking to listening, you go from a beta brainwave state in alpha beta into an alpha brainwave state. And alpha is calmer. It's a lower, it's like when you're thinking and your brain was all like this, just switching over to listening will help calm you down. And so you can just sit and listen, and you can use a singing bowl for something like that too, or a chime, or birds even. I'm a big fan of just listening to the birds as a really just good meditation to just bring you into presence. But forks are really nice because they have this sort of fade out. You can stay really present with that as it goes. So that's one way. Another way is that I invented a tuning fork. This one is called a sonic slider. And it's got this boot on the end that traps sound waves in these little, they're little holes or dimples there. And this is something that you can just rub on your body. You can rub it all over your body. You can rub it on your face, your neck, your scalp, your sternum, your legs. Basically you just kind of rub sound into yourself. And this is it's coherent, it's orderly, and its frequency is based on the Earth's natural electric pulse of around 7.83 hertz. It's 7.83 hertz times 12, it's 93.96 hertz. And it's a vibration that is universally pleasing to most people. It helps them to really relax. In fact, I have a nurse in an ICU right now who they've been in a very busy area the last few months. and everybody's all stressed out. And so she's got one of these and she's bringing them in and they're lining up in the ICU for these little 5-minute mini sessions, because just doing this for 5 minutes helps you to relax and to breathe. And that's really, what we need to do to bring ourselves down out of these elevated stress states, is just settle down, take some deep breaths, come to presence. But that work also can be used on like sore muscles and improved digestion. It's called the sonic slider. And people are reporting that it's useful for many, many things. It's a great kind of first aid kit thing to have at home for people. So that's a good place to start with tuning forks, the sonic slider. And then, we also have practitioners all over the world. So at our website, biofieldtuning.com, you can find forks. You can find audio recordings that I've done of me conducting group distance sessions. That's very affordable and people find them very helpful. And we have some other practitioners who've been doing them as well. So that's a kind of a good way to just sort of explore what receiving a sound session feels like without having to commit to, a full session on your own.
I'm glad you mentioned the distance sessions, because that's getting into a topic that I find fascinating. Because it makes complete sense to me how the fork works in the presence, physical proximity to the biofield. But here you're getting results, with non-locality separated by distance, and even more interesting, people are getting the good effects separated by time as well. So, what do you think that's starting to imply about the nature of the transmission of the biofield tuning?
Well, I didn't believe that it was possible to begin with. People would ask me, and I was extremely skeptical. But when I finally tried it, it worked. And then I taught other people to try it, and it worked for them. And at this point, that hypothesis has been tested hundreds of thousands, if not approaching millions of times. And the hypothesis always works. Practitioners are able to read and modulate the field of the receiver, and the receiver, more often than not, certainly mine do, and I can't speak to new practitioners and their efficacy, right off the bat with distance tuning, but certainly people who receive sessions from me, and I know the advanced practitioners that I work with, have profound outcomes. In fact, I don't even receive sessions in person. I only receive distance sessions, and pretty much only, give distance sessions. And I get that it's a stretch. It is because the mechanism that it works by is through a state of matter that none of us learned about, called ether. And some people invoke quantum entanglement. I don't use that language, but I believe in the ether. I believe in the underlying ground state, the luminiferous ocean of clear light that all waveforms arise in, and fundamentally all of creation is all one thing. And so why wouldn't there be instantaneous information available within the one? So I use the phrase resonance in the ether. Well, I also talk about it sort of like, if you've ever edited a document with somebody in Google Drive, non-local to you, that you both kind of plug into the same place in the internet and you can co-create that way. 40, 50 years ago, that would have been unthinkable. Do we ask what the technology is? How does it work that we can edit a Google Doc together? I don't care. The fact of the matter is that we can do it and we can produce a good document together. Why should we care so much like how distance tuning works? We don't ask that about our cell phones, how they work. You just look at it and go, okay, it works. and that's been sort of my experience with it. Another example that I give, because sometimes people are like, with my recorded audio sessions, whenever I do a group like I'm doing with the Shift Network right now, we've got like 1,500 people in this group, plus everybody who will ever buy the recording in the future. When I recorded it, they're all pre-recorded. I imagine a hologram composed of the data points of every single person who will watch live, be in this series and jump on some point later on, that they're present. And so they're not there while I'm recording it, right? But then they end up being moved by the recording. And so I say, well, did you have to be present when that particular piece of music was recorded in order to be moved by the recording? How is this any different? It's just music is moving. It stirs emotions. Biofield tuning is moving. It stirs emotions. And the recording is going to be just as stirring and just as evocative of an emotional experience, potentially, that some people really have that, some people not so much, as listening to music. And it doesn't matter when and where it was recorded.
I'm all aboard with that. It certainly makes scheduling a lot easier. You don't have to schedule your biofield tuning for 3 p.m. on Thursday afternoon, and if you're late, you lose it. So I think that's brilliant. But there are those who always want to have that, proof, validation. But you're also involved in that sort of work as well. So maybe tell us a little bit about your Biofield Tuning Institute.
Well, the Biofield Tuning Institute is a nonprofit that we set up to study the biofield and specifically my biofield hypothesis. We completed a study last year where we were asking the question, would 3 different practitioners find the same areas of perturbation around a volunteer? So we put the volunteer on a table and blindfolded them, and one by one, 3 different practitioners came in and did a scan of the biofield, working with a tape measure on the floor. And we were going to see if we could each find large perturbations in the same zone. And what we discovered with that research was that we really exist in the space between each other. And when you and I meet face to face, we're going to have magnetic field interactions. We're going to sense each other's vibe. And I'm going to feel inclined to tell you particular stories that might be different than what I might tell to somebody else. And so even with the volunteer not being able to see the practitioner, we can absolutely sense each other's vibes. And so what we found in that study was that we didn't find the same areas like we do in classes. This is a very interesting thing. When you have all one people with the same focal point, you kind of end up with a one mind thing going on. And so we found this timeline aspect of biofield tuning to be incredibly accurate. And, that if somebody is 60 and they had a traumatic event when they were 30, we're going to find that in this spot. Right. But the fact of the matter is that most people have had many different kinds of traumatic things. Like getting my wisdom teeth pulled was one of the most physically traumatic things that I've ever experienced. But I've also, had other injuries and accidents and other emotional traumas. And so what we found is that there's no way to pin down the perturbations in the biofield individually, because we all resonate with different areas and are going to bring out different areas to work with magnetically, if that makes sense. Just like that, what I said about the conversation, you're going to draw out of me different things in conversation than someone else will. So the whole outcome of that experiment was that we didn't have inter-rater agreement, but we did learn a tremendous amount about how the magnetic field interacts individually to each person.
That makes sense to me. I think, I don't remember the exact quote, but I believe there's a Tibetan proverb about healing to the effect of there are 3 elements to it. There's the patient and their illness, there's the physician and their healing methods, and then there's the karma between the 2 of them that also plays a role. So it's an interaction. Like that's the healing arts, part of it, when it's 2 people
right.
interacting and communicating with the goal towards healing in this case, but maybe different roads to the same goal.
Exactly. And that's a beautiful way to put that. I like that quote a lot. So, we didn't do research to like prove the hypothesis. We just did it to explore the hypothesis, and that was what we saw. I mean, there's so much research that can be done in this field. It kind of boggles my mind. And, I've had a fantasy of having a very well endowed lab, with plenty of money to play with, because the biofield is a fascinating unexplored field of research. And my sort of primitive pokings into it with tuning forks are all, we've seen such profound outcomes, especially in this emotional health department, where, people just become healthier from this work in ways that other things haven't been able to help them. We've been able to treat pain and depression and digestive disorders and self-limiting beliefs. And, the things that make us stuck are all stuck in our electrical system. And it's very hard to unstick deeply patterned loops in your electrical system yourself. But we can come in with a tuning fork and find like, whoa, yeah, you've got this pattern. You're always worrying about the future, like let's shift that flow in your electrical body. Let's settle down that rhythm in your rhythmic patterning. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I feel so much better because you were jacked in this electric story. And now it's been released and freed. And so it's a very useful, medium to work in. And so there's no end of research that can happen in the biofield going forward.
And I think that's especially valuable at these times, because people are often, have all these intense emotions that they're sitting at home with without access to a lot of the traditional release valves of going out and going to a show or going out with people or the bars and whatnot. So how have you found any helping out the people in these times getting over that isolation syndrome?
Yeah, I think connecting with voice is really some of the best medicine. And, I've been doing this work in the Shift Network where I'm doing the tuning, but I'd like to see us go more. I like to see myself. I'd like to see people in general. For me, the getting to the place where I could feel safe and able to sound all these inner pipes it's been like a 30 plus year journey for me to reclaim my voice, my singing voice, my expressing voice. I think that our culture takes away our voices. I think you see a whole bunch of kindergartners. How many of you can sing and like to sing? Everybody raise their hand. And you get to 4th or 5th grade and that goes down. And then by the time people are adults, we all have all of these stories around our inability to express. And yet I have found on this journey that the freedom to express and play with our own human instrument is 1, our birthright, and 2, one of the greatest joys that we can participate in. Anybody who's been to concerts, who's sung at the top of their lungs, anybody who's been in a band, anybody who's played, knows that high and that feeling that comes from singing together, from being in music, from dancing. This is a human birthright that cultures, every indigenous culture, every member of the culture engages in singing and dancing. And we've lost that. And we've become greatly diminished, and our health has become greatly diminished as a result. And if we want vibrant health, we have to connect with what it means to be a natural human. And natural humans sing and dance and express, and they express their full palette of their being. That's what song is all about, and the need for song. And I think that is something that you can do. Go in your bathroom and run water, sing in the shower, play with your voice. Even if you can't leave or whatever, you still can hopefully make sound. And that can be that release that you need.
That's right on. So I always think that that's one of the simplest but most profound benefits of the whole sound healing field, that new permission and empowerment to just start making your own sounds. And as that happens, the openings start to get wider and it becomes your own for a tool to make your own and continue with. So, yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, on that note, if people do want to come find out more about your work and your current offerings, where are the best places to go?
So the best place to go is Yeah, my website is biofieldtuning.com, and you can buy very high quality tuning forks. They make the highest quality tuning forks pretty much that you can get out there. I need to get what you pay for with tools. Certainly you can get less expensive ones on Amazon, and if that's where your budget is, you can start there. But especially the unweighted ones, like the cheap unweighted ones, I wouldn't go there. They're just not worth it. But you can get, less expensive weighted ones in other places. But ours have super long handles, and, they're just very thoughtfully designed based on my research. So you can get, I don't know, there's just a lot to learn. And my book is on Amazon. Tuning the Human Biofield. If you want to check that out, it's on Audible and also Kindle. And the new one is coming out. Electric Body, Electric Health is coming out in January of 2021. With Macmillan, and that will also be on Audible and Kindle as well.
But ditto to that point about the tuning forks. And yes, you can find cheap ones on Amazon, AliExpress, and whatnot. But just remember, the cheapest thing is not always the best value. I've seen a lot of those forks that were perhaps worth less than the raw materials that were consumed to make them. Bless it. But you also have a course that's running now on the Shift Network that is still available for registration? Or is
I don't know, because as of tomorrow we're into 4, but then it will be available. And I've done other ones previously on the Shift that are available in the archives at the Shift Network, so you can just search me. And then I'm going to have another one coming up. Actually, the one that I'm going to be doing after this one, I'm pretty sure is going to be all about the sounding all the notes of your inner instrument and getting people to be more brave and more courageous, giving voice to how they feel. And, in doing that, stimulating health. And really I will say, on that theme, that I've been involved in healing for 30 years, and nothing has been more powerful than this process that I've been going through. A colleague and I are kind of working on it together. Sounding these notes has been so transformational. So that'll be available, down the road with the Shift Network too.
Well, I love that as a title and as a theme, sounding all of our notes, just finding all those harmonies and vibrations and melodies within our own being and let them play out. So thank you for that. Yeah, and thank you for being with us today. And I appreciate making the time to join us non-locally from Jamaica. And hope you stay safe and healthy there. Sounds like a good place to be for the time being. So.
Yeah. Great. Thanks so much for having me. Take care, everyone.
Cool. Thank you for being here. And thank you for everyone joining us out there. And we appreciate you. And come on back, because there's more to come here on the Sound Healing Global Summit. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for the Sound Healing Global Summit, brought to you by the Shift Network. To learn more, visit soundhealingglobalsummit.com. To join our global community of people awakening to their divine humanity and taking inspired action, visit theshiftnetwork.com. Thank you again for gathering with us and for sharing this healing path with your friends and family.